this is the kind of a challenge we see, and then this is where I thought, at least in this particular case, from the Agile side, we look at yes, how do these design thinking and agile, do they complement, do they supplement, or do they contradict each other? So I hope most of you are familiar with Agile and have some fair exposure on Agile principles. So before we get too much into the topic, I'll spend some time talking about what design thinking is about, and then towards the end of the discussion, we can get into how both complement each other. Okay, just to give a view. Okay, design thinking is less about designing per se. Okay, then what are we talking about? We are talking about moving away from enhancing what is already there. Okay, it is like you have a laptop or you have a computer. So I'm tweaking the keyboard a bit here, the monitor a bit here. So that is more on what you call, we would say, improvising what is already there. So it is not that. It is looking at talking to the customer, or for that matter, looking at what would customer require now, which is not there. So it is not just asking a customer what you want, but looking at what is it that can be provided to meet the latent needs of a customer, or the needs of extreme users, as we see the people who are ready to accept innovation, who are ready to accept new products or services, or for that matter even for mainstream. So this is where we are just not restricting our mind and our vision to the existing frame of products or services which are already there in the market, but we are absolutely, our minds and thoughts are absolutely open to look at whatever alternatives which could potentially be there in the market. And please remember, technology is getting richer and richer every single day, which means that there are newer options, newer models which are enabled by the technology which were not there earlier. Just look at what happened to say the alarm clock market. Okay, it just got wiped out simply because it was enabled by the cell phones, or for that matter, what is happening to on the car industry. You have an electric car, you have a perfectly lean company called Tesla Motors, which has come in, and then it is kind of having a very it's a disruptive innovator on the already mature car industry. So just remember what Steve Jobs said about customer needs. If you go and ask the customer, is not going to know what he needs. So that is where the disruptive innovations, like all the I category products, iPhone and iPod and everything, started coming into the market. So the point is, design thinking is not just about designing, but it is about what is the new product or service which we can design, which is really going to meet an untapped customer need in ways and means which have not been explored before, which means that it requires an absolutely open mindset, creative mindset, and an ability to question, and then relentlessly experiment till we really see some light at the end of the day. Okay, what is typically design thinking is a confluence of three different items. One is desirability, which means that it is a human factor, it's the human dimension. Is there a desire to consume what we produce? Which means that is the opportunity real? Which means if I produce a product or service, is somebody ready to consume it? And then you have the feasibility. Whatever is it that I want to produce, is it technically feasible to produce? And then in ways and means that, okay, it is competitive. Can we win this particular can we win this particular business? Is it really viable? Will my costs and revenues meet? So point is, it is not just one-dimensional thinking on technology or on business viability, but we are also really looking at what is it the customer needs, and then is he really willing to pay for it. And typically, one view about the startups is that they focus excessively on the technology part, but they don't focus too much on the on the business of human part. But I think from that perspective, I think design thinking is more skewed on the disability part. It is really a leading edge thought process, which is really looking to going to tap into the customer needs and then see, do I have the technology to meet the need, and then can I do it in a very, very a viable way where I can make a reasonable profit out of this whole venture. So it is matching all these three concepts that we'll have to see how we can come up with a product or service which meets the market expectations. Okay, now this is design thinking process in short. At the heart of it is collaboration, and then I empathize with, and then we start with the cycle of ideation, prototyping, testing it, and then I continue to iterate it, and then I empathize with the user. How is the user feedback coming in, and then I synthesize the feedback, define new requirements, ideate it, prototype. So it's a kind of a cycle coming from this entire slide is coming from the D school or design school from Stanford. So they are the thought leaders in this particular area. So if you see this ideation, prototyping, testing, empathizing, and then defining, this is a complete cycle which keeps going on and on, and then till a point where yes, we kind of stabilize on what needs to be built, and then we build it. So if you look at it, what are the key principles here? It is not just plainly a process. So the first thing is it's human centric. So there is going to be a lot of prototyping, and all these prototypes are going to be extensively tested with the actual users, or so that we get their experience on how the product or service is really faring. So which means that there's going to be a fair bit of end user interaction. Then radical collaboration. So if you look at it, we are talking about what do we mean by radical collaboration is the team is going to be cross-functional as an Agile, but then the extent of the diversity within the team, that it's going to be really dramatic. So you'll have technical specialists who look at the feasibility, you will have the finance guys looking at the viability, and then you will have the guys who have leading edge, who work with leading edge users or extreme users, basically who are on the far right of the curve in terms of being innovators, or just plainly the mainstream users. So and then you will have fair bit of market analysts or the domain experts who come in with their understanding of the market. So it's going to be the team is going to be fairly diverse, and then each one coming with their kind of experience base. It's going to be a really radical collaboration in ways and means which we have not seen earlier. So that we look at all these three dimensions, and then we come up with something which is passing on all three dimensions. Then we are going to be extremely creative, no holds barred in terms of looking at the potential solutions. And then as with Agile, we're going to be biased towards action. So we are not going to just sit with an hypothesis and then check the hypothesis whether it works in the market 6 months hence or 10 months hence. So it's going to be really clicking and checking on the go immediately. In fact, there is one video from Nordstorm, you can look at it, how Nordstorm is doing design thinking. In fact, they go to a lens showroom in Seattle, and then they are building an app for the salesman in the store. So they sit in the store, they develop it, looking at the customer needs then and there, and then they test it on the customer then and there and improve on it then and there. So in a week they have an app which is really meeting the customer needs, and then they had no idea the week ago that okay, how is it going to look, but they just see their experiment and then check with the real users and then improve it on the go. So as I said, it's always about rapid prototyping, because you really want to check whether what works, what doesn't work, and then what are the finances behind a particular product, okay, what it takes to build. And then typically, especially in case of hardware or mechanical kind of applications, you also need to look at what is going to be the costing of the material. So prototyping really helps in that okay, they can really work out what an unit item is going to cost. And then as with Agile, there's a lot of visual focus. So there'll be a lot of what you call prototyping on the paper itself, lot of visuals, so that everybody can get a feel of what is needed. And then you will have fair bit of, say, empathy maps or customer journey maps or persona mapping, so that we have a fair view of who's our customer, and then we depict the kind of persona or the customer journey in a visual form, so that we are able to better imagine the customer experience. So in short, yes, it's going to be really much more dynamic, much more agile than what we know as agile in delivery, because this is going to be more cutting edge. And then if you really want to look at more on design thinking, you can look at you can Google for ID, EVO, and design thinking. So they are the leaders in this particular space. Or you can look at Tim Brown's articles on this particular topic. Okay, so here's one leader called Bruce Nussbaum. So he talks about what design thinking is and what is his view of what it means. So he says, okay, designer's point of view is to look for a meaning, look for what other people find meaning in their lives, what they are looking for, particularly if you are selling them something, what do they really desire, what do they dream about, and then you find an appropriate technology to apply and then come up with technology that makes them happy. And then what is implied is that it makes business sense in terms of being able to meet the revenue projections. So as you really look at it, it is going much beyond typically what we do today, especially in the software side, to understand what is called as customer needs. So basically, it is heavily templatized, and then we go with a particular framework, and then we assume that yes, that we know the customer what the customer wants, based on a very narrow frame. And that narrow frame is what are the systems which are currently existing. So they help us to build enhancements, but if you look at radically new or next gen products, they are very hard to convey because we really don't, we are not radical to that extent. But you could really clearly make out from what Bruce says here that, okay, he is looking at, look into the terms like meaning. Okay, what other people find meaning in their lives, which means that we really have to really see whatever we build is really meeting their need. And then often the real products which make a killing in the market are those which meet the latent need. Latent need means a need which has been left unaddressed till now. And then for that matter, most of us don't even realize that it is a need because we've not really effectively thought about it. So it is all about being on the floor with our potential target customer base, validating and checking our hypothesis all the while. And then we see, okay, what are the technological solutions we have? So customer need is first, technology is second, and then we have to marry both in a very viable business kind of framework. Okay, just wanted to check with you. Most of you would have heard of a product called Google Glass, right? It was it came out on the market 3-4 years back. But then what happened? If you look at it, it was a kind of a wearable which people can wear, and then it had a fair bit of functionality. Anyway, you could just Google it what it does. But then what really happened was that it had about $100 million budget. The product itself was pretty much good in terms of its functionality, what it could do, and then stuff like that. But then it really didn't take off in the market because there were certain privacy concerns which came out. And because of the privacy concerns, effectively the product was kind of fit in the market in a very negative sense, and then ultimately we don't hear about it too much. Why this particular example is again given by Bruce, just to showcase the point that if our evaluation of customer need is kind of not that great. Even however great our the product technology is, and then however good our implementation is, it's really going to affect the profitability, because the insufficient analysis of the customer need or validation of the customer need often will kind of hit your business. So this is just to say that we, especially in the startup world, we are more biased towards technology and less towards customer needs. So I think design thinking will really place us in with a view that understanding and appreciating the customer needs and verifying and validating it through the prototypes, getting real-time feedback, and then incorporating that feedback into our product mode. This is actually, it's extremely important that whatever we do is something which adds meaning to their lives. Just to borrow what Bruce Nussbaum was stating. Okay, now coming to the critical part, you have design thinking represented by the bulb, because typically we would like to associate design thinking with innovation or creativity to a large extent. And then, okay, the pink ones, arrows representing Agile. So do they really complement? How do they relate to each other? Let us just get into answer this particular critical question. Right? Okay, before we get into how they complement, let us just look at the commonality, right? The first thing is, in both cases, there is a relentless focus on team, right? So if we look at, like as Agile says, we look at people over process, and then in Agile we have the concept of cross-functional team, where whoever is needed for delivery are their part of the team, right from development, testing, configuration management, product owners, etc. But then in design thinking, that itself is dramatically expanded, so that we have specialists from all the fields who are required to get your product on the ground, and then so cross-functional itself is much more to a greater degree in your design thinking setup, and then they are empowered. And then as with design thinking, because they are working in fundamental product hypothesis or concept, they are much more empowered, and then they have fair bit of budgets to really experiment and fail fast. So yes, to really check the product concept, we need to do rapid prototyping. So of course, when we talk of Agile, we talk of incremental and iterative delivery, producing a working software, evaluating the working software. The same thing is there, more in the product generation of product concept side and design thinking with rapid prototyping, and then with visual modeling, as I said, so that we could get a clear inkling of what is coming. And then rapid product inspect and adapt. That means whatever feedback I get from the market, I'm going to incorporate it in the product, so that I could really revalidate my product. So always the focus is towards a working software. As we saw in an earlier slide, there's always a bias towards action. Then we have, yes, both are innovation oriented. We all realize that yes, continuous improvement and innovation is what is going to give us a sustainable value, because otherwise, if we keep doing things the same old way, we are really not going to go anywhere. And then in Agile, we always have the focus of what is the business value our software is bringing to the system. And then, yes, the focus more in BT is on brainstorming and ideation. And then overall, in both systems, we are okay to fail fast, and then the risk appetite is by and large high. So it's not just that some teams can practice design thinking, some teams can practice Agile, but at the heart of it, we need an organizational culture which promotes learning and experimentation. So I just want to relate that the overall focus of the organization, culture of the organization, should be towards what the writer called Peter Senge calls as learning organization. So in a learning organization, everybody is this orientation is to really look at how can we get better, and then applying new tools, techniques, methodologies, and concepts, or newer ways of working to innovate, be creative, and then newer ways of developing things. And then you also have an organizational environment in terms of budgeting, corporate communication, infrastructure. So all of them really, even the HR organization, how targets are set. So they all work together in tandem so that the culture is towards learning and experimentation and not on just coming up with a plan and sticking to the plan. So those type of plan based organizations really are much less agile, and then you really don't expect the real design thinking or say agile cultures to thrive there. So this being the commonality, if you look, this being the commonality, now we look at where they complement each other. So if you see here, the design thinking is more on the upstream part, what we see in the orange. It helps you understand the customer needs and come with a solution concept. And then Agile is more about building and delivering the solution in iterative increments. So the point is, the product management organization is typically, we would expect them to use design thinking to rapidly validate the backlog, okay, or in the sense groom the backlog with what are the features which are needed in the market. Will they make sense? Will they not make sense? What are the options? Which ones we want to really try out? So there's a fair bit of exploration or experimentation which goes on in terms of what needs to be developed. Okay, so that will be done primarily by the product management organization, which we expect to practice design thinking in a pretty much intensive way. So now, can the world structure, can a structure with just product managers with say product owners and domain specialists just do the job? Answer is no. Even for them to do a first level validation of whether the solution concept will work, we need some bit of technology guys around there. We need coders, we need testers, we need DevOps guys to rapidly set up the environment and so on. We need performance folks there, we need security folks there. Maybe not in a full-time role, but at least being part of the teams where and then contributing when needed. So these are the guys who are going to come up with UX specialists primarily. These are the guys who will come up with what are the potential features, and then which ones could really need to make a cut to the market, which ones need not. So I would say that these are primarily the grooming actions which are there, which happen on a particular product. And then once they are particularly groomed, okay, the delivery organization will work in typical iterations or sprints, as we know, and then deliver to the market. So generally, typically, what is the consensus in the industry is that the upstream actions, okay, upstream actions in terms of where requirements get collated, requirements get groomed, where the backlog gets groomed, that's where we see a particular focus of design thinking. And then second point is, for this backlog grooming to be pretty much effective, it's not enough that it's just done by requirements of domain specialists or product managers or product owners. You need to have a fair bit of technology guys around, DevOps guys around, some testers around, and then some UX or security or performance specialists, so that the concept is pretty much wholesome, and we also know that the concept is something what would make sense for the customer. So having said this, yeah, this is another one, same thing which is depicted in a much more pictorial way. As you see here on the left hand side, you have the customer problem. So this is primarily the design thinking space, right, where you are defining the challenge, you observe your target market. What are the difficulties they have in the market? What are the insights then and then look at what are the potential challenges which needs to be sorted out, and then from those challenges look at the opportunities, right? And then you work like a lean startup, what Eric Rice has kind of formulated. You try experience, you brainstorm ideas, and then you pivot or persevere. When you say pivot means that you drop it, it's not a great idea, go ahead and implement, or you say that, okay, let me try. And then you get into this typical iterations where you have your sprints delivering working software, and then you go into this cycle which we are all familiar with. We have iterations, and then we learn from what has been deployed, and then and then by the time we do that, you have new sets of features which are moving from the left to the right. So as we see here, overall, if you look at the culture point of view, we need teams which are cross-functional. We need people who are open, who are transparent. And there is a system which promotes visibility. And then we also want to have management which is ready for experimentation, which inevitably means that at some point your budgets might not really yield the required results because they don't because it was a failed experiment, like what happened with, say, Google Class, or in some other cases it is quite possible that yes, it might be a super duper hit. So it is that risk appetite, as we were talking earlier, that it is extremely critical. So overall, it is like we can sum up that. So this is so with if your teams, if your organization is going to deploy design thinking, then you can for sure be very much certain that with design thinking's prototypes and feedback from users, as an organization, we will do what is the right solution, which makes sense to the market, which will be received well in the market. And then with Agile, we build and deliver the right solution. Deliver the right solution the right way. So this is more on the delivery mechanics, and this is more on the product mechanics. As you all know, if the direction is wrong, there is no point. There is only little benefit you can get by your delivery excellence, because ultimately whatever we are making as a product should make sense in the market and should capture the market share by being innovative, by being creative. So just want to say that I can be very, very innovative or creative in building what you call a typical car which runs on petrol or diesel. But then look at what Tesla is doing, how it is capturing the market. It is not just building, having delivery excellence and building a car which runs on hydrocarbons, but it is investing all its energy on building a car which is running on electric motors. As we know, maybe 3-4 years down the line, it's going to be a huge impact, and already I think I keep hearing the news that hydrocarbon car makers are they are not having a great prognosis of the future. So why I'm saying this is why in Agile it's good that yes, we are focusing on the delivery mechanics, but then yes, we need to really empower the product organization with design thinking, so that we just don't do it the right way, but we do the right thing. So that is really very important for the sustainability of the product as a whole, and then for the sustainability of our organization to invest and learn. Yeah, I think just to sum up, this is again another quote from Bruce. So here, if you look at it, innovation is not just about new technology. Like as I've been telling, it's good to be tech focused because that's where my strength is. But then that technology should really be addressing the true and real customer need. So it is about new models of the organization. That is no longer just about design is no longer about form anymore, but it's a method of thinking that can let you see around corners. And high-tech breakthroughs that do count today are not about speed and performance, but about collaboration, conversation, and co-creation. So the idea is that, yes, with collaboration, conversation, and co-creation, and basically the underlying theme is that we are a strongly cross-functional team. We really make sure everywhere that, yes, what we do is giving the customer value and then meeting an unmet need. And then your technology or your agile is just a means towards delivering that customer need in a very, very efficient way. So design thinking is about having an effective product which is going to meet the customer needs. So yeah, this is what it is. Yeah, this is my Twitter handle and LinkedIn ID in case you want to connect. But just want to before we yeah, I think it's right time for questions and answers. So looking forward to hearing from you. Yeah, I could just type the questions in the chat. I'll be able to. Yeah, I think I have some questions already. Yeah, I'll just go with what Rajesh Arjun is asking. I'm still not clear the distinct difference between Agile and DT. Okay, I think that's. I think fairly. I hope you have already got this kind of difference. Um, just to summarize, Agile is about teams, cross-functional teams delivering customer value every particular sprint. Okay, so in Agile we still talk about doing the right thing. That's where you have things like product owners coming up with the right requirements, backlog grooming, business value, and shortest job first, WSJF, etc. But then if you look at DT, that portion about what is needed and then what do we do? Does it really make sense for the customer? That part of that focus is very much there. So design thinking is about creating the right product. And then I have one from Sanjay Prabhu. How does Agile design thinking prevent defects? Okay, design thinking is about what needs to be built. Okay, whether what is the product you want to go to the market. So design thinking is about the product concept as a whole and less about delivering it or executing it or building it. Okay, so design thinking is not about defect prevention per se, but then if you look at how Agile is, the whole focus of Agile is about zero compromise on quality. So that's where we have strong focus on automation at different levels, continuous integration, and then we also have the concept of definition of done, so that we are strongly monitoring quality. And as you all know, the whole concept of an agile team is to build quality in, and then quality is just not owned by the testers. Have one from Ramanathan Yajnanarayanan, I think. Yeah, Subbu, where do we get this presentation? I hope it will be shared, but yes, Ajiveta will get back to you on this. How is DT different from Agile? I think we've discussed this question already. Yeah, we have two more. How is Agile different from Scrum? I think this is a very fundamental question. But just to recap, Agile is the umbrella of methodologies which are Scrum, extreme programming, and then it is also today including things from Lean world like Kanban, etc. So these are the umbrella of and Agile is more of an umbrella term which has methodologies like Scrum, extreme programming, a bit of Kanban and Lean techniques, etc. How can a PO get closer with the development team to communicate the expectations of requirements in a design thinking world? Any specific ceremony do you suggest shall help? So I don't think there is something more than what we do already. But the fundamental difference what we see today is what we will see with design thinking is today. What used to happen earlier in the requirements was that requirements used to come in a URS or a DFS, and then it will be a huge amount of paper, and then that will be circulated, and that is what is going to get developed. Today, I see that maybe we are not having those bulky documents, but still the way requirements get converted to epics, features, or user stories, there's not much of customer interactions or that value perspective coming out. Okay, so it is just that earlier they were writing documents, today they are writing stories. Yes, there's a certain degree of improvement. I'm not disputing it, but the but the difficulty is that we are not really improved